The road ahead has never been more clear. Success belongs to those who take the lead. Welcome to Dealer Insights, the podcast that puts you in the driver's seat of growth. Hosted by Vin Micciche, industry leader with over 30 years in automotive. This is where experience meets innovation. From cutting-edge technology to game-changing strategies, we go beyond the surface to bring you the insights that matter. Real conversations to help you navigate the ever-changing automotive landscape. Buckle up. Your next competitive advantage starts now. Welcome back to Dealer Insights. Vin, it's great to see you, man.
Yeah, great to see you too, Michael.
How was the trip?
That was fantastic.
Yeah, well, you look like you got a little color, man. Welcome back to the grind. Welcome back to the grind. We've been busy.
Yeah, we sure have.
Good
busy.
Well, it's a good busy and AI, the output, the efficiencies that we're able to gain and increase our output from marketing it's very helpful. It's like having a superpower. Feel like a little kid with a cape right now. Anyway, keeping the conversation going, it's a very important conversation.
Mm-hmm.
What AI is and what it isn't. I think we need to start peeling those layers back. We need to take a deeper dive, especially into conversational AI.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question for you, Vin.
Okay.
How would you distinguish between the marketing hype around AI and what's actually possible for dealerships today?
Yeah, so my take on marketing has always been, it's an emotion. Selling is emotion. Marketing is emotion. So obviously a lot of companies are using the term AI to pique interest from dealers, and it's all over, right? Everyone's talking about it. But my take on AI is that it's new. It's a tool, and there's a difference between automations and actual generative AI. Generative AI is really around learning from the data, not just setting up an automation to, if you do this to say that. And that's really more of a new gen automation than it is actual generative AI. So if you think of generative AI, it's really an LLM, which stands for large language model. So it's really learning from data and language. So at the moment, if you haven't used ChatGPT or Bard or Genesis or Claude or any of these new generative AI tools, I would highly suggest you do, because it will blow your mind. I think in the last podcast we talked about how I use it more than Google now to answer questions for me and to do research. So basically, it's ingesting a lot of data that it can find, and it's basically giving you answers quickly. So a large language model, it's a software that learns patterns and predicts actions and helps humans make better decisions faster.
Right.
Just like you mentioned on the marketing side. But there's one branch of AI that I wanted to really zero in on, which is conversational AI, and why I feel like what we're doing here at Strolid is really a game changer.
So when we talk about conversational AI specifically,
mm-hmm.
from the capabilities, you and I have probably a better understanding of what those capabilities are. If you could just give the audience an overview and kind of get them up to speed.
Yeah, so at Strolid, for years. Obviously, I've been in sales and automotive for 30 years, and we work in the messiness of real conversations, right? And that's why, we'll probably get to this, but anyone who tells you they have it figured out right now is probably just embellishing a bit, because there's so much that it doesn't understand and can't do, right? So we work in the messiness of conversations like phone calls, texts, emails, chats. And what we've learned is that conversations are full of insights and signals that we knew they were always there, but who had the time to listen to it all, right? So not just in what customers say, but how they say it, when they say it, and what do they say. That's really what intrigues me as I play golf, and the reason I like it is because I can't master it. And something sick inside my head makes me want to keep doing it, knowing that I'll never master it. I'm going to tell dealers this. You're never going to master sales. And AI has no chance to master sales, in my opinion. I know I could be proven wrong, and I'll be happy to admit it in 5 years. But it'll be a pretty scary place if you can talk to a robot and build rapport and feel like you're being treated properly and everything without any type of human interaction through a sales process. Now, there are low-level kind of AI programs that can replace humans, and we've had them for years already. So, conversational AI is about turning those human conversations into structured data, or metadata, as some call it. So think of what I said about generative AI. It's pulling all this information in from various, books and magazines and internet, obviously, and websites, and just tons and tons of information that it's pulling when you ask a question, and it's trying to give you the right answer back. The challenge with that is that the information that's out on the internet is typically someone's expert opinion, and it can be biased. Where conversations, we're basically taking every word in a conversation and we're transcribing it and turning it into data, and then feeding it to generative AI tools to learn from the conversations. So with that type of information being fed into AI, could it speed up the ability to talk to a human better in the future? Yes. But is it happening right now? No. It can do things transactionally really well, but those never required a lot of skill anyway. I mean, to schedule an appointment when someone wants to come in at 1 p.m. is really a transactional type of conversation. When you've listened to all the conversations and all the interactions that Strolid has over the years when it comes to buying a car, you'll quickly understand, if you listen to lots of calls, that no two humans are the same. They don't react the same. They have different emotions. They have different reasons for calling. By the way, customer fills out a lead form and submits it or calls most of the time, and we could talk about this on a marketing podcast maybe, depending on the stage that they're in, determines how urgent they are.
Right.
But when they call, the only better lead than a phone call is a walk-in customer, because they're showing a sense of urgency by walking in. They're also sense they need some type of information, or they wouldn't call. If they call, then it's probably a little bit more complex than just scheduling an appointment.
But the walk-in customer it's interesting that you bring that up. And as I'm listening, it's making me think back to my time in retail. Now, I didn't spend a decade in retail, but I had a decent amount of experience and was successful, right? I was ranked 37th in the nation for Kia when I sold Kias.
Wow.
we're in a high lease pen market. It's over 70% lease penetration. And I had mastered the art of selling the lease, right? So I was doing a lot of used car ups. I would do the switch, right? Put them in a new car lease and send them on their way. Spot delivery, out of here. So anyway, when you up a customer, after a few minutes, you kind of get this sense that there's likelihood, it's either highly likely or not, that you're going to you have a deal, right? Like a really strong deal.
So just to stop you real quick, that is called intuition.
Right.
And intuition comes from experience. And that's what AI, it's going to take a long time for it to understand that, if it ever does. I don't know. I mean, who knows? But that type of, they call it sales experience for a reason. And people struggle in sales for that reason, is because if you don't have the experience and you haven't had those conversations or those types of conversations, I mean, the challenge is people have very unique questions, and some have a sense of urgency, as I mentioned. Others, otherwise they wouldn't call. So you put them in the IVR loop, for example. I always talk about IVRs. Some of these companies out there pitching AI, like I said, it's kind of a new gen automation more than an AI, more than generative AI. So if we talk about IVRs just for a quick second, that's when you call a dealer and it says press 1 for sales, press 2 for service. It's trying to sort the customer to the right place, right?
Right.
If you've ever run a BDC, you'll know that customers struggle with IVRs. Why? Because someone's not picking the phone up in sales. Oh, well, then a robot can do that. Okay, well, listen to the calls. They're not calling because they have a simple question. They're calling because they have a problem that they're trying to, or they have they want to make sure that you have what they want, or that it's in stock, or that you can, get them financed, or they have a trade. And all those conversations, if you broke down each one of each one, like just a trade call, you can't even count the number of different types of trade calls that there are. One's a black one, one's a blue one got a lot of miles, one's got a little bit of miles. So it's a lot of information that a human can't answer it either, but they can, at least let the customer know that they'll do their best to help them when they arrive, and all this other stuff, and all the things that we train our salespeople on how to overcome. And can AI do that? Potentially. It's just not there. Not from what I've seen. And I don't know if it ever will get there.
And why would a dealer want to take the number one lead source and hand it off to this brand new technology that I think it maybe looks good on paper, but what Strolid has done is put the measures in place to capture the data of those human to human conversations.
Yeah.
That's where the insight is.
I think the danger right now is that a lot of these vendors are pitching their AI like it's going to replace the team at the dealership. They position it like it's a plug and play robot salesperson. And we just haven't seen it. I mean, we played around with a lot of it. We see all of it, which is great. But what's really different about the way we're approaching it is that I mentioned generative AI is looking to the internet and looking for data anywhere that it can find it, and then trying to ingest all that data. And then the magic behind AI is it can ingest a ton of data really fast and spit out an answer. But that answer is not always right. Here's an interesting thought I just had, but when I train salespeople, I know this may sound a little, sales-ish or slippery or whatever you want to call it, but we don't train salespeople to say yes, and we don't train salespeople to say no. That's not our job. A salesperson's job isn't to say yes or no. The only time you say yes or no is when you're negotiating a deal, not when you're building rapport. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the human intuition that you need to have in order to be successful at selling.
Can you give me an example of that?
Yeah, like I want to buy a $20,000 car for $10,000. Most salespeople will be like, no, you can't do that. Like bad ones. And what's an AI going to do?
It seems like the AI at this point needs that. It's going to tell the customer no. Is my guess. I can't do that, but I have this other car that's nothing like the one you want. I don't know if it would even,
Yeah.
I could see something like that working.
The Wolf of Wall Street?
Of course.
Sell me this pen. And they automatically just go right into the explanation of how great the pen is and all that.
Right.
And his point of that was, how do I know you want the pen?
Right.
How do I know you need a pen? How do I know this pen fits your needs? You have to have a conversation. And what's special about Strolid right now is we're now turning conversations into data. So now think about it. It's not just the stuff that's already been some expert opinion out there on the internet, and it's real. It's a real conversation. It's really what's happening. And that's like so big that it's hard for people to understand what I'm saying. And so we talk about my dad listening to lots of phone calls and how we came up with the idea to create the VCons and the conserver. It was because I knew he had insights that no one else had because he was listening to conversations. Now, if we can feed conversations into a large language model, now we can see them at scale and speed and faster and really hone in on things that we were just not humanly possible before. But that's the robot's job. Our job is to actually train our people and train, the model and, maybe come up with some efficiencies and things like that. And we're just playing around with it. We have lots and lots of ideas in our roadmap, ideas of things we want to test out and try out. But the last thing I want to do is test out a robot on my dealer's customers and it fails or hallucinates or gives the wrong information. I'm not ready for that yet. And I don't know how these dealers aren't worried about that. I think one of the reasons we did this podcast was because I am trying to help dealers understand what AI actually is and where it is right now. Not so much to sell our AI. We're looking at it from a perspective of how do we get insightful data, information out of those conversations, not how do we replace our staff.
Right. So the insight that the conversational data provides from the VCons being processed and the conserver, it's giving the information back to people so people can continue to push those objectives, right? The objective is selling more cars. The objective
right.
is more customers in the showroom. The objective is customer experience, satisfaction, CSI, service appointments. It's efficiency, it's scale, it's just improvement. And so
if you want to start a business,
yeah,
you need to solve a problem for your customer.
Correct.
And if you can do that, and you can do it better than they can do it, then you have a business. Now, I don't want to say we do it better than dealers do it because I know there's a lot of BDCs out there that do a great job, and we don't want every dealer anyway. We don't want every dealer out there. We want ones that fit and respect what we do. We respect what they do, and we work really well together. Those are the magic kind of customers, right? So it's just not realistic today for a robot to talk to a customer. I mean, that's really what the point I wanted to get across. It's bad for business, and it could be used the wrong way. So think about IVR, as I mentioned. That's been around for probably 2 decades now, maybe more. I don't know. But press 1 for this, press 2 for that. We removed the receptionist to save money. And part of the conversation I want to talk about is I don't see AI as necessarily a reduction in staff. And I know a lot of people are looking at it that way. And don't get me wrong, there'll be a reduction in labor from some of the menial stuff that people hate doing anyway, which is fantastic for me because I'm, a salesperson. I hated working in the CRM. I just wanted to talk to customers. So think about the IVR, right? The challenge is people are very unique, as I mentioned, and their questions are unique to them. And some have a sense of urgency. Otherwise, they wouldn't call. So if you put them in an IVR, and I call it the loop of frustration, and you press 1 for sales and it goes to a voicemail or no one picks up, then you press you press to speak to somebody and there's nobody there to speak with. If you ask our client success team when we onboard a dealer, when they have an IVR, and we know how to set them up really well now for the dealers. But I tell dealers all the time, the most underappreciated position in a car dealership is the receptionist. Because the IVR can't handle the customer. So if you put them in the loop of frustration and they can't get what they want, what are you saying to them? You're basically saying that they're not important to you. And you're not that important. If you're not that important to a company, they'll find some other place to go. And because there's lots of places to go. So the moral of the story is, even the best AI can't close deals, but it can help your people close more deals. That's the way we look at it.
So what I'm hearing is conversational AI has a place. It's growing. AI as a whole is new, and that there are some really good solutions in the industry, and there are solutions that are kind of disguised as AI that may also be. We spoke about this on episode 1, and you have to understand the objective, right? And look at the experiences, testing those experiences. Like if you implement something, put your customer hat on and go through the process and challenge it. Like there's not necessarily a silver bullet, but so
my take on technology is this, and those in the car business think I am like into technology, but those in the technology field don't see me as a technologist, right? Because I don't write code or anything like that. But when you look at the history of technology, it's definitely helped out a great deal and given us more and more information. But has it made the world better? Are you selling more cars because you have a CRM, for example? I don't think so. Because what we forget is the core of the business is solving a problem for your customer. And if you have a culture of people in your business that's focused on solving the customer's problems to the best of their ability, then you'll have a successful business if you have a good solution, right? But the technology just makes it more efficient. But when I look at CRMs, I see a lot of CRMs that don't even get used properly when we onboard a dealer. So why buy it? I know I used to say this years and years ago, but if it wasn't for the desking tool or desking solution or keeping your data organized to write a deal, dealers wouldn't need a CRM. They have the DMS to store the customer info after the customer's purchased. It's for follow-up. It's for making sure that the right people pop up at the right time. But it's a lot of work. So think of this for a second, Michael. AI can summarize a 10-minute conversation in seconds. Now, if you take that summary and you put it into the CRM, isn't that better than having a salesperson type in notes and then click buttons and reschedule the next appointment? You mark my words, I'm going to say it here. in 5 years, there will be conversational CRMs, regular CRMs will be gone, where you don't have to even lift a finger or enter a keystroke because everything you want to know is in the conversation. You tell me you want me to follow up in a week. The conversation knows when to tell you to follow up to that customer. The AI will know that. So that's where I think it's going to get really interesting. But I don't think it's going to replace people. So everyone's going to get that through this podcast. That's the message I'm trying to get through is the people-to-people interaction is a human need. Did you know that? That people they have studies of prisoners of war in Korea that were put in a dark cell that were perfectly healthy. And within 6 months to a year, they would die. And they were being fed. It was isolation. They weren't communicating with anybody. They weren't talking to anybody. They just died at young ages from isolation. So you need human contact. If we get rid of that, that's really scary. I'm old now, so I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime, but I don't mean to get so deep on you, but I'm just telling you, it's really, that's how much I've studied it. As you know, I went to I got a certificate at MIT for AI and blockchain and all that. I'm trying to learn as much as I can about it. And from what we see at this point in time, dealers, don't worry, you're not missing anything by sticking an AI tool into your system, because it's people that make appointments. It's people that sell cars. It's people-to-people interaction. It's not a magic pill. It's going to create efficiencies. It's going to give you insights. It's going to help you run your business if you use it properly, but it's not going to replace your staff anytime soon.
And it's going to provide some accountability back to the conversations, which are going to ultimately make the people better, right? And in the conversations, the way that they talk. Real quick, Vin, if you had to give a recommendation, right? Sitting down at the bar, having a beer with a dealer buddy, and the options were have a receptionist, an IVR, or like a new AI where, it greets the customer like a virtual receptionist where it understands that natural language. In what order would you make the recommendations to, casually to a dealer buddy?
Selling a car isn't like selling something on Amazon. That's the first thing that they need to know. It's a big deal. It's a big purchase. Customers have anxiety about the whole purchase. And there's probably people listening to this going, well, the car buying experience is torture and all this other stuff. That may be true, but if you've ever had to buy a house, it's equally torturous. If you have to go through a closing and all that. Can that be modified to be more efficient? Of course, it can. Can somebody just pick a car, select it, buy it, put their trade information in, get a number, and hit buy it now? Yes. That started happening when COVID hit. The big, the bad C word, COVID. And there was a rush to build digital retailing tools. Strolid is a great sandbox for all this stuff because we got to see it in action. Customers were not buying a car online. When you talk about someone buying a Tesla, it's a very small fraction of car sales or Carvana. I think Carvana sold 400, maybe 500,000 cars in a year. There's 30,000, 4 or 500,000 cars in a year. There's 30 million used car sales a year.
Yeah, and what's
so what percentage of people are actually going to Carvana and buying their car online? Now, will it evolve more over time? Sure, but it's not there right now. And everything's in evolution. I will say this to dealers out there right now: if you were you the person, the dealer back in the mid '90s that were one of the first to get a website, or did you wait? In 2006, we literally still, when I was doing all the e-commerce for that big dealer group I used to work for, there were still dealers out there that didn't have websites. It was an evolution. So think about that. From 96 to 2006, it still didn't penetrate 100%. Now it's probably 100%. I don't know if there's any dealers out there still that don't have a website, but There's late adopters, there's early adopters, all that. So a lot of the AI right now, if you're an early adopter, all I'm going to tell you is that you better pay attention to it because it's not going to be perfect, and neither are people. Everyone's looking for that holy grail, right? It's not there. So my solution would be to test it, but make sure you have an escape hatch, and that escape hatch has to be humans. Don't let an AI system just try and run your business because it won't work. You'll lose business. You'll lose customers. And every company out there that's pitching AI tools, I think if they were honest with the dealers, they would say you still need people. Yeah. You can't rely on it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's super impressive what Matt's doing with Horizon, right? But at the end of the day, Vin, still need people to manage it. And it's not autonomous. There's nothing out there that's autonomous about AI, but here's how
we're using it though, just to summarize what I just said. Like I said, AI can take a 10-minute conversation and summarize it in seconds. Right. That gives your sales team the upper hand before they pick up, where we left off or where the conversation left off. It's like a cheat sheet for salespeople and for managers trying to close more deals because the information is there. Because the hardest part of selling is that awkward meet and greet, initial rapport building, qualification part of the sale that every salesperson, I don't care who you are, you would want to know that before you started talking to them if you could. Well, now you can if they had a conversation. If one of the Strolid, if a customer interacted with Strolid before they came to your showroom, you would have that information. To me, that's gold. Like how could you want any more than that? Your first job is to build rapport, qualify the customer. Now it's done. That part's done for you. So in a way, you've already had, and if we could summarize that and put it in the CRM, which is something we're working on right now, we're helping you unlock that at lightning speed. And, not every lead is created equal, Michael. In conversational AI can tell you who's shopping for a car, who's browsing, who's looking for payments, all that.
So can you break it down real quick, Vin? Right? Like, let me just paint this picture.
Yeah, the break it down is the goal isn't to eliminate people. The goal is to make sure your people are trained and spending time with the right customers at the right time. That's really what it's all about.
Exactly. So let's talk about a specific scenario, right? What's the purpose of the BDC?
Same thing.
To provide a good experience and to ultimately drive traffic,
build value and value creation. It's to answer quickly because that tells the customer that you're important. Yes. So can an AI answer quickly? Yes. That initial engagement, yes. Can it ask a few questions? Sure. But when does the salesperson or BDC enter into that conversation is critical. So that's why we're not ready for it yet because we don't know, and none of them know. They can tell you. Now the texting and email replies that are done through AI are good. It's the conversational stuff that I'm not sold on yet. I mean, they're getting better, I should say. I'm not saying they're perfect either. But it's easier to text back and forth with somebody just to get a flow of a conversation going. Yep. But you need to know when to jump in as a human.
Yeah, I like what William's doing.
Yeah.
I think that
we're not anti-AI or anti-bot. I'm all I'm here to do is just to try to make dealers feel a little bit more at ease that they're not missing out on anything really huge, especially if they have a really well-trained staff that's doing all the things that they're supposed to be doing right. It's not going to double your sales if you're in that situation already. It's going to add cost, though. That's another thing that we talked about last time. The cost isn't free for these tools. So if you still need humans involved, then what is it really saving you? That's why buying or thinking of AI as a cost savings, staff elimination type deal. It's not. but it can make you a lot more efficient and a lot better at what you do if you really think through it and use it properly, you know?
Yeah, that's a valid point, and one that's been brought up a few times.
Mm-hmm.
So
customers don't care if you're using AI. They care if they care if you're not responsive, or you're not clear, or you're not helpful, or you're not available. So AI has a purpose there. And if you respect their time and you've been using it, you know, I don't know if I don't want to sound like the old guy here, but man, we had process at the. I grew up in a Toyota store that was huge. We was number 7 in the country at one point. We had closers walking around the lot, pairing customers up with salespeople that were wandering around out there. Like if your customer was out there for more than 30 seconds, like you would hear it from the leadership of that dealership, because answering a phone quickly, it's important. Answering a lead quickly is important. Answering a text quickly. I hate to say it this way, but it's almost not as important as what you say as it is to how quickly you do it. So that's where I think AI can have some, advantage, but you have to be able to, you need an escape hatch for humans. You have to be able to say, okay, this is where the AI needs to stop and the human needs to take over.
There's a lot of paths that we can go down. And I'm thinking of the BDC's operating. We know the purpose of it. And sometimes the desk and the leadership want to know when there's a TO.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what'd they say?
Mm-hmm.
What do you need me for? Right? Maybe pricing or second voice. That's where I think conversational data and VCons and the summaries
Mm-hmm.
are powerful, because it's no longer an interpretation. Remember being in grade school, young kid, and the teacher would whisper something and start on one side of the class, and by the time it got to the last person on the other side of the classroom, it was something totally different, right? Lost in translation. It removes all of that.
Mm-hmm. It does. I hope they don't mind me using their names, but it's important because I wouldn't be in the car business if it wasn't for these 3 guys. But it was Ira Rosenberg, who owned the Ira Motor Group, his son David Rosenberg, who took it to another level, and then David Holt. Those were my mentors, right? Growing up, I learned a lot from them, and I don't know if it was Ira David or David Holt or David Rosenberg that used to or started talking about that. I believe it was Ira, but he used to call it the golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated. That was his expectation. It was really important to him that customers were treated well. And so I'm a great employee because all you have to do is tell me what my expectations are as an employee, and I'll do it. So getting that type of direction was important to me. David Rosenberg used to have a saying, when I was a general manager of a dealership, if it gets to me, it's free. Meaning if the customer was upset and you can't handle it and he gets all the way to me, I'm giving him whatever he wants because I don't need the bad publicity. So we were given that type of, authority to make decisions to fix customer problems as a general manager in that group. So really, the real question here for every dealer is, what kind of customer experience do you want to deliver? That's it. Because if you can't solve a problem for your customer, you don't have a business. You can't shortcut it. It's got to be real. It's got to be cultural. It's got to be part of your DNA as a business to help customers. And if you don't have that, you're never going to be successful in a business. I mean, you could potentially kick by, but I have 3 things I pay attention to here: my people, my dealers, and profit. And if anything is affecting any of those 3 things, that's where you're going to find my attention. My people are upset, I'm involved with them. I'm trying to fix their problems, and my dealers are upset. I'm involved with them. I try to fix their problems. And if we're not making money, I'm out there trying to sell. So as a CEO, those are the three things I have to pay attention to. Because a lot of people ask me, how do you got 200 employees and dealing with all these dealers? I just try to focus on those things.
I think
and I'm not perfect, by the way. So
no, nobody.
I make lots of mistakes.
Fail fast, man. That's kind of my mantra in the world of marketing.
Can I just add one last thing about that? What I just said?
Yeah.
If I've been doing this 30 years and I still make lots of mistakes, how do we expect a robot not to make mistakes, or not to miss opportunities, or not to capitalize on? I always say, like, when a customer's upset, it's a great opportunity to sell, because you don't get upset about something you don't want. If you don't want it, you're not going to get upset about it. So there's an opportunity there to fix that and make them happy, fix their problem, and then sell them something.
That's a brand new one for me. I really never looked at it like that.
Yeah, well,
that must be the Irish side, man. I want to be combative.
Yeah, combative is not good. Remember I said
no, not when you're selling.
You don't say yes or you don't say no. So they say I want to buy a $10,000 car for a $20,000 car for $10,000. Your answer should be no problem. Let me see what I can do.
Right. Exactly.
You didn't say yes.
You didn't say no.
You didn't say no. And I know that kind of sounds a little tricky, but how else are you going to build rapport? You don't build rapport by saying no. And you obviously will get fired if you say yes to everything.
Nobody wants a yes man.
No. That's for sure.
So, Vin, all right. You have some experience, man. All right.
Yep.
You were a closer. Probably before that, you were a liner. You were the green pea. I can appreciate that. Go green peas. Big shout out to all the green peas just getting into the automotive industry, by the way.
Yeah. If you can survive through the car business, it definitely, it gives you, it's kind of, I'm not going to say what I was just going to say, because it would, but anything tough in life is, there's a saying that, bad times make tough people make good times, and good times makes weak people. I believe in that. So going through 30 years of the car business, it was tough, but it definitely teaches you a lot,
It's a unique industry. And, if you're just getting into the business, or you've been in the business for a little while and you're trying to climb the ranks, like, stick with it, figure out ways that, you can solve problems in your store, in your market, in your OEM, right? And just keep climbing one foot in front of the other. And if you get knocked down, you get back up. Stay committed.
I'll end all this on one thing that I think is really important for dealers to hear. It's that if you're aiming for basically transactional, high speed, low margin sales, then maybe AI is for you, or just another automation layer is what you need. But if you want long-term value and retention and repeat customers, then AI isn't going to do that. However, it can be a great co-pilot, as Thomas likes to say, for your team, but not your crutch.
Right. It should be, it's a tool. It's a resource. It's a program. At the end of the day, it's a program.
Correct.
It's lines and lines of code and databases, and it's been fed. And the magic is you can talk to it just like we're talking to you today in natural language, and ask it about those problems and how they might be solved, so it can help you get to maybe a better answer than what you would have thought of, or something new that you never would have thought of. The conversational data and the conversational AI is based on it's a cheat sheet that's specific to the conversations that are happening, and any patterns that can be pulled and identified. It can be a strength. So Vin, if you were, we have your experience, right? You have your experience, but we've just briefly discussed that. If you were buying a dealership or you were sitting in the GM seat today, what would the top, how would you use AI today? And at what frequency would you be using it?
Shameless plug. Our search is better than most call recording softwares because you can search keywords now instead of just looking at calls. Obviously everything conversational I'm looking at right now. Our Strolid GPT allows us to ask and prompt and ask questions about the conversations. And our signals are going to start giving our dealers that information directly to them without them having to log in and look for it. We also have a consent app that we're working on, which is becoming more and more important with compliance and all that. AI aside, a business is just a group of people. And so the first thing I would do is create a culture around expectations. Obviously, those are to drive revenue and so forth, but taking care of customers, all those core things that I mentioned before. And then see where AI fits to help enhance that, not necessarily just sign up for every new shiny widget that comes along.
Okay.
And if it it's a great question, Michael, because when I was handling all the marketing for that big dealer group, I was handling all the digital marketing. Vendors hated me because I asked questions. Like, what is that going to do for me? How is that going to help me sell more cars? And I'm going to hold you to whatever you say. And I'm also going to, listen to how you say it. And I can usually figure out pretty quickly whether you're full of shit or you know what you're talking about. So how is this ABC vendor AI company going to help me do X, whatever X is? Prove CSI, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be, answering a lead or a call. But how is it going to help my business? What expectations do I have, or what are the needs I have to fix my business? I actually spoke to somebody. Obviously, I'm not going to reveal names. That they had an objective to reduce headcount, and they were looking at AI for that. And I just said, just be careful how far you go with that. Because it could erode your customer base. We actually had a customer tell us that they had a certain AI product that they were getting X amount of calls a month, and once they plugged it in, it dropped 25%, meaning customers are hanging up on it.
Oh, right out of the gate, they're just disconnecting.
So looking at data is super important. And it's a never-ending thing because there's so much data, there's so many dashboards and logins and all that kind of stuff to look at everything. But if you go back to what I mentioned about what I learned early on in my career, which is the golden rule, I want efficiencies, but I don't want it to affect my customer experience. And I consider that to be not transactional. Anything you sell in transactional, you can do with AI. Like, meaning I want to buy a pair of shoes, or I want to buy a tube of toothpaste on Amazon. Like, I don't, I shop on Amazon a lot, but it's because it's convenient. It's not a big purchase, it's not gonna. So anyway, I'll digress, but the AI tools I would use were to take massive amounts of data and ingest it into large language models and learn from whatever insights it can tell me. And we can do another podcast on prompting, because that's a big thing.
Yeah.
How do you prompt it? How do you ask it questions? And how do you drill down? Because it will do that. I mean, if you get an angry customer that came through, you say, hey, show me all my customers that are frustrated, right? That's like something you can ask Strolid GPT. And Michael Donovan shows up and explains that he was, mistreated in the showroom, I can say, can you write Michael an email? And it'll write it for me. I don't know about you, but I hate writing emails. And I don't have to take everything that it says, but it gives me a structure so I can go in and edit it to my, voice. So those are just some cool things that AI can do, but you still need that human intuition and human involvement. So I don't think I answered your question, but.
No, you did from a slightly different perspective, but it tracks and it makes sense that you didn't just answer the question. You gave even more context of how you would, take the helm in that leadership role in a dealership today. And, here's my 2 cents, little hot take, if you will. I think AI in automotive is here to stay. Mm-hmm. It's also any dealers, GMs, or leadership team that's implementing it. You are the innovators right now. Okay. So it's the innovator group based on the diffusion of innovation theory, which, I'm a big fan of that, methodology.
If you think about the OEM, right, and the dealers and any product or brand, their number one goal should always be customer experience and customer in figuring out how to solve for customer challenges and expectations. That's really the core of what we're talking about, right? The golden rule: treat them like the way you'd want to be treated. And if you can do that and solve their problem, you have a business. Now, what gets in the way? Well, the internet got in the way of dealers, right? Lots of leads. How do we handle them? Right? And lots of phone calls. Well, those customers were there before the internet.
They were.
Yeah.
And the yellow pages.
The yellow pages. But they were also there from referrals, repeat customers, knowing people. I mean, a good salesperson for me when I was a GM had referrals, right? I didn't need to spend money on marketing for referrals. People came to see them because they liked them, because they could do what, Michael? They had good relationships.
They could connect with them on a
what
human
is a
to
good
human
relationship
level.
Though? What is a good relationship? That's an important, because it sounds like a cliche when you talk about it. It doesn't sound, especially when you're young, you're like, yeah, Dad, we need relationships. But as you get older, you realize how important relationships actually are. So if you're a young person listening to this, make sure you work on your relationships now, because they're going to pan out for you in 20 years, whether you just don't know it yet.
That's right.
Take care. It just comes spiritual, right? You take care of as many people as you can, and that comes back tenfold, right? Down the road, and they want to take care of you. How does a robot do that?
Yeah, but what exactly? And what do people remember about those interactions?
Right.
They don't remember the words you were saying.
They remember whether you picked up the phone when they call. Do you know, I have one of the mentors I mentioned. If I texted him right now or called him, he would text me back and say, I'll call you later. Or he'd pick up.
Yeah.
And he's a busy guy. But I'm important to him. That's what it tells me.
Right. People remember how you make them feel.
100%.
If you feel important, appreciated, respected, taken care of, you're accommodating to needs, it makes the whole financial and transactional part of the relationship a little easier. Hey, can you help me out? It's the best. It goes both ways, and it's that mutual understanding. And that's, like the cornerstone is the actual relationship.
Yeah, do everything in your power not to be the reason for a bad relationship, right? It's like when you're a kid, you don't start the fight, but you're not afraid to fight. Right? Someone punches you, you get into a fight. But you don't start it. That was always something my dad put into my head. Like, never, walk away from stuff if you have to, but it's, and it's the same thing in a relationship, right? Like, don't be the reason the relationship is bad.
Right.
because there's bad people out there. You know, you're not always going to have every customer that's going to be nice or be. I think down deep, most people are good, right? Majority are, but when they come into a car dealership, they have their hands up. They're ready for a fight. The better you can break that down and build a relationship, and then they're going to tell two people who tell two people who tell two people, and next thing you know, you have a book of business, right?
Oh, yeah.
I know, but think about that. That sounds like common sense, but when you look at some of the, horror stories within the car industry, you're like, that person doesn't get it.
Look, shout out to Sean Collins, man. I mean, I watched him do such an amazing job. And you know what his secret weapon was?
What's up?
He got up from behind the desk and he went and sat down with the customers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When the salesperson couldn't, push him over the curb, close the deal, Sean would come out and put, a face, a personality, and work with the customer. And now he's taken that to the entire organization, and it's his methodology and training. And, he's elevated his role. So it's that type of, it's what I think about when I hear you talking about relationships. I'm visualizing, watching Sean at work, and it's an impressive thing. I think this is important information. The additional context is outstanding. Yes. And, episode 4, prompting, like automotive prompting, right? Yeah. Solving the issues that you're facing. The
challenge for dealers right now is you have nothing to prompt until you get conversational data like we have for our dealers, because like prompting on ChatGPT, like I mentioned, it's someone's opinion, and it's coming from articles and information that some, professor or somebody wrote, or some reporter article or whatever. It doesn't necessarily make it the Bible, right?
Right.
It's not 100% accurate. Not that the Bible is, but I don't know if we have. I mean, I believe it is, but the point is, it's conversations are real. Whether you want to hear it or not, that's what's actually being said by your customers. So again, the so-called experts that think they know everything, I hope I don't come across on these podcasts as this expert that knows everything, because I don't. And that's why I wanted to have this, is because neither do the AI companies that are pitching you these products. And I'm not afraid of them, by the way, either. It's not like I'm trying to say, oh, it's going to ruin my business because the robots are going to start talking to customers. Like, I'm not worried about that at all, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So, I think just stepping slightly outside of the conversational, one of the things as a marketer, all of these vendors would talk about, well, it's trackable, and everything digital is trackable. And, we have our reporting here and our reporting over here. And, can you believe those reports? Or, geez, another login that I have to, analyze. And I think that with some of the ways that I've started using ChatGPT is building out the projects where I can upload files, I can give it instructions. So I could have my analysis project for my CRM data, my DMS data, my sold by zip data, and then feed in my pump reports and like all of this information and start to actually.
It's funny, Michael. It's interesting because you and I have been together now for a while, and I really respect and appreciate all your marketing experience and all you do. But as you're talking about all that, it kind of answers my question, your question about what would I do if I was to go into a new dealership. Like, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking while you're talking, how's that going to help me sell more cars?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people get wound up and hung up into all the to-do stuff.
Yeah.
And they forget to look to see if it's actually moving the needle.
Yeah. That would be my goal
or they're actually not looking to see if it's improving the customer experience, or if it's helping improve your margins, or if it's creating more, service business or whatever it is that your expectations are. I mean, that's what you need to look at whenever you implement anything into your business, including Strolid. I mean, if we go into a business, I've actually told dealers that call me and want to sign up with us, we do an assessment, as you know. We look at follow-up, we look at workflows, we look at lead volumes, lead quality, all that kind of stuff. We give them a whole report. I've told dealers, like, you're doing a great job. Why do you need us? Because the last thing I want to do is go into a business and tell them that we're going to do all this great stuff for them and do the same or as what they were doing before. Like, there's people that are working there, working hard, and are doing a good job. And if they're doing a good job and they're trained well, I'm not going to lie to a dealer and tell them that they need us. Not everybody needs us, right?
No.
The whole point of sell me this pen is to find out whether they need a pen or not. Not everybody needs a pen, and it's okay. Move on to the next one that might need a pen. You're not going to sell everybody. Even if you're Tony Robbins, you're not going to sell everybody.
Right.
And once you get over that, you can be a very good salesperson and not get upset when you don't close a deal. And you can be a really good sales manager because, if you're following a consistent process and your people are really good at treating customers well, you're going to sell a lot of them. If you get a lot of them, that's where your marketing comes in, by the way.
That's right.
Get me more people to talk to, right? I don't necessarily need them lining up with a checkbook in their hand. I just need people to talk to if you want to be a good salesperson.
That's how I would use is finding how can we get more customers at a lower cost? Like, where are we bleeding on, spend and our cost per acquisition? And then, once you have that baseline, that's like phase one, then you can start looking at the customer lifetime value and, expanding and reallocations and testing new things. It's that part of AI is exciting to me, is the analysis and taking, I love numbers. I love being immersed in the analytics and the metrics, the KPIs.
Yeah, I do too. I'm definitely a data guy
because
well.
they're real. It's factual. 1 + 1 is 2, and I think that's why I gravitate towards the metrics.
Yeah,
they tell a story.
Yeah, no question. And but it has to be collected consistently.
True. So automotive prompting.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a great topic. We know where we can find you, right? LinkedIn or Strolid.com.
That's right.
Strolid.ai is going to be getting a series of updates soon, and you can wander over there, poke around, check it out. And give us some feedback, some comment, what you want to hear about in the future. And appreciate you tuning in to Dealer Insights.
I appreciate it, Michael. Thanks.
Outstanding. Yeah, Vin, have a great day, man.
You too.